Welcome back. Today in this video, we are going to see how we can make use of Spring AI to implement chain workflow design pattern within our Spring Boot application. So when it comes to Spring AI, it simplifies the integration of AI features within our Spring Boot application. When it comes to the chain workflow pattern, it is a part of agentic design patterns. These are nothing but you can think of it as a blueprint to solve or manage how we interact with our LLMs. So when it comes to Spring AI, we have different set of design patterns available like chain workflow pattern, parallelization workflow pattern, routing workflow pattern, orchestrator workers pattern, evaluator optimizer pattern. In this video, we are going to focus mainly on the chain workflow pattern. So before jumping into the implementation part, let's first understand what exactly is chain workflow pattern. So when it comes to chain workflow pattern, what we do, let's say we have to solve one complex problem. So instead of giving one large complex prompt to the LLM, we break down that complex problem into the smaller number of steps. So each step will make an LLM call and output of each step will be act as an input to the next step. So let's say we have divided our problem into three steps. So each step will make an LLM call, and if the result of that step is successful, we will progress with our flow. If there are any errors, we will simply exit the flow. So here you can see after the LLM call 1, if the output is correct, our flow will progress to LLM call 2 and with LLM call 3, and accordingly we will accomplish our task. But if there are any errors in between, we will simply exit the flow. So this is how the Spring AI chain workflow pattern works. So when we should use this pattern, so let's say if we have a clear sequential path, then we can utilize this pattern. Also, if we have some kind of problem which we can break down into the smaller parts, then we can also utilize this. So these are some of the scenarios wherein we can utilize this pattern. Now let's see the one sample application that we have developed wherein we are going to implement this chain workflow pattern. Coming to the pom.xml, so here you can see we are making use of Spring AI version 1.0.0, which is a stable version that has been released recently. And apart from this, we have added dependency related to starter web, using which we will create the REST API. And then we have added the dependency of Spring AI starter model OpenAI. So using this dependency, we will interact with the Gemini APIs. So even though we are making use of OpenAI dependencies, but we will interact with the Gemini APIs, which are free for the POC purpose. Apart from this, we have added Spring AI BOM dependency, which is useful for managing the versions and the dependencies related to the Spring AI. Coming to the application configuration, we have just added the configuration related to AI. So here you can see we are first passing the API key. So we are passing this from the environment variable while we are running our application. Then, as I mentioned, we will make use of Gemini API to interact with the LLM. So here we have defined the base URL for Gemini, Google Gemini, and then we have specified the path, and we have specified the model that we are going to use. So in our case, we will be using Gemini 2.0 Flash Experimental. Now coming to the application, so what use case we are trying to achieve is basically we will create one blog post generator application wherein we will have the four steps. First one is the research step, wherein based on the topic that user has provided, our application will generate the key points about the topic. Then we have the structure phase, which is nothing but it will define the outline for our blog that we are trying to generate. Then we have the content phase, which will actually write the blog content. And then we have polish phase, which is nothing but we will enrich or enhance the blog content that is generated by the LLM. So here you can see we have the sequence of four steps, which is research, structure, content, and polish phase. So coming back to our application, we have defined a controller wherein we have the endpoint API block generate. we will accept some input from the user, let's say the topic on which the user wants to generate the block. So when the request is received to the controller, it will simply call our service by passing the input that we have received. So we have defined one service which is the blog post chain workflow. We will call the generate blog post method, and once we have received the output, we will simply send it back to the user. Now coming to the chain workflow service part, which is actually implementing the chain workflow pattern. Here you will see when we have defined this class as the service class, then we have defined a Spring AI chat client. So whenever we have to interact with the LLMs, we can do that with the help of chat client. And then we have created one array with the help wherein with we have created an array with the name system prompts. I will come to this part. So coming back to the chat client, here you can see with the help of chat client builder, which is provided by Spring, we are initializing the chat client, which we will use it to interact with the LLM. And when it comes to system prompts, here what we have done is basically we have defined the four phases that I mentioned earlier, like research phase, structure phase, content creation phase, polish, or we can say enrichment phase. So for each of these phases, we need certain prompts that we will send it to the LLM. So this is where this method comes into the picture, which is initialize chain prompts, wherein for the research phase, we have created this prompt that we will send it to LLM. So it will basically generate 5 to 7 key points based on the topic that the user has mentioned. Then we have the structure phase, wherein it will create the outline for our blog. So here you can see uh, create a detailed blog post outline. So this is the step 2. Next, we had seen that step 3 will be it will generate the actual blog content. So here you can see the prompt mentions that write a complete engaging blog post with 800 to 1200 keywords. So this is the step 3. Now step 4 is related to the polishing or enriching our blog content. So here you can see the prompt mentions review and improve the blog post. So finally, after the 4 steps, we will get our content related to the topic that user has provided. Now coming to the generate blog post method, which is getting called from controller. Here we will pass the input that we have received from the user, and here you can see in order to implement the chain workflow pattern, we are making use of for loop, and inside our system prompts we had the 4 steps, right? So this for loop will run for the 4 times, and the each time the input will be the system prompt, and the output generated by each step will act as an input to the next step. So here you can see first what we are doing is we are calling the system prompt, which we have to pass to the LLM, and we are also passing the response that we have received from the previous step. So this will become the input that we will pass it to the LLM. We will call the LLM, and whatever response that we have received, we will store it inside the response variable. So next time when this loop runs, this response, which is the output of previous step, will act as an input to the next step. So this is how this loop will run for the 4 times, because the size of the system prompts array was 4. And once all the steps are completed successfully, we are simply returning back the block content that is generated by the AI. So now we will see this in action. So inside our controller class, we have the generate endpoint. So when we will come to the postman, um, here you will see we are we are calling the API block generate endpoint, and the topic that we are giving is getting started with Docker. Now what our application will do, it will simply generate the block content, and it will make use of chain workflow pattern in order to achieve our result. So when we are sending the request to our application, here you will see currently the step 1 is getting executed, which is the research phase. Step 1 was completed. Now it is the structure phase, wherein it will create the outline for our blog. And once the structure phase is completed, the actual content creation phase will be executed, wherein our blog content will be generated by the LLM, in our case, which is Google Gemini API. It will take certain time to generate the content. Once the step 3 is completed, finally we are enriching or polishing our the block content that was generated. So it will take certain time. So step 4 is currently getting executed, and here you will see still the request is in progress. So once the step 4 is completed, we will receive the final output. Now when we go back to the Postman, here you can see the entire block content that was generated by Google Gemini is sent as the response to the user. So here you can see total 4 steps were executed when it comes to the chain workflow. Now, when it comes to improvement, in our simple example, we have not considered the scenario wherein if what if any exception is encountered. So, as an improvement, we can add the error handling logic within our sample code, or while you are implementing the chain workflow pattern in real life. And if there are any errors, you can simply handle those errors with the help of error handling. So yeah, this was all regarding the chain workflow pattern. We have also created the detailed blog for the same, and the example that we discussed is uploaded on GitHub. You will find the link here, which is Spring AI Chain Workflow. So I hope you found it useful, and if you are interested, you can try this example. Yeah, that's all from my end. Thank you.